everybody. Welcome to the Clear Tai Chi Mastermind meeting on this Friday, January the 15th, 2021. And today's topic is the Jin of Clear Tai Chi, Part 2. Ting Jin of Clear Tai Chi, Part 2. Receptors, processing, and perception. And before we go any further, let's go ahead and do a note from our sponsor. And that is on Dong Jin, knowing. Clear Tai Chi. And on there, I'm talking about in order to know, you have to be able to feel or perceive. And that for that, it becomes knowing, which is Dong Jin. And that video is about how to really get to that place with your Tai Chi. And go ahead and talk about it further and or where they can find it.
Yeah, it's that it is that taking the sensations and the receptors and using that to put together all the pieces of the puzzle and really understand it and know what you're looking at, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, to really know it
and how to train it so that it becomes the Dong Jin.
Yeah, and so that is available at taichinowing.com.
All right. So today with us on this call, we've got myself, Richard Clear, your host, and
Matt Holker,
the regional organizer for Maryville, Tennessee, outside of Knoxville. Welcome. And Phil Chan in Columbus, Georgia. Welcome, Phil. And Sheila Bell in Costa Rica. And I'm going to let her tell you what parts of Costa Rica.
Hey, everybody. So I'm teaching Clear Tai Chi in Guanacaste, which is the Northern Pacific region of Costa Rica, specifically in La Veria, Playas del Coco, and Playa Panama.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Greg Nomeyer in
Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Michigan. Nice to see you all.
And Chris Walsh in Maine. I'm going to let him tell you what parts.
Everyone, I'm in Hollowell, Maine, just outside of Augusta, Maine.
And who am I leaving? Oh, Art Don in the
Washington area.
I'm going to let him tell you where. Yeah.
Yeah, Art Don, Washington, D.C. area, Greenbelt, Maryland. It's about 15 miles east of Washington.
Welcome.
Everyone.
And is there anybody else on the call who I've forgotten here or I've overlooked somehow?
Harry will be joining us.
And then Harry Legg from Verona, New Jersey, outside of New York City, and he'll be joining us momentarily. All right. So perception is how our mind interprets and attaches meaning to what we see, feel, hear, taste, sense in any of the ways that we talked about last time, right? And then that perception is what we think is reality, but usually it's not really reality. It is our perception of reality, which isn't quite the same thing. It is our mind processing, organizing, and classifying the information that we receive from our senses. That is what your perception is. Our mind tries very hard to put everything into a form or expression that we already think we know or understand and that fits our personality and bias. It can be biased for better or worse, right? And so that bias can be as simple as you see a flower and you think the flower is good, and then you go to touch it and there's a thorn in it. But all you saw was how beautiful the flower was until you realized that, oh, there was a thorn there too. Or people look at what they think of as a bad situation, and their mind races with how much worse it could be, and then they find out it's not anything even close to that. Yeah, that it's a lot less of a problem. And so our mind wants to fill in these gaps, especially for things that we don't know. And the other one is that your mind will actually fill in gaps. I've seen this where somebody writes out a paragraph and they leave out all of the vowels. And if you just skim it to read it, you read it as if the vowels were there more often than not, like the whole thing. Your mind fills it in for you. And I've seen other ones where people then like anagram words and there's ways you could anagram it where you're going to have to work your butt off to figure it out, especially if we're talking about longer words. But I've seen it where things were sort of anagrammed or switched around. And if you just glance it, you wouldn't even know what happened. Your mind doesn't read it.
As long as the first and last letters are the same, and you can jumble around the stuff in the middle of each word, and literally like you read through the paragraph and it makes sense to you. Your mind organizes it into the pattern that it's familiar with to allow you to read it.
And this is true so much that if you did it with something that was a short saying or something like 3 to 5 words, and it's a common enough saying, people will glance it and not see the errors, or see the changes, because their mind just fills it in so much that they just immediately, when I say assume, I don't mean it's something where you thought about it and assumed it. I mean, your mind just basically assumes, oh, a stitch in time saves 9, and then they go read that again, and you go read it again if it's one where somebody's trying to play a little game with it to show you this principle, and it's like, oh, it doesn't say anything, it doesn't say any of that, but it looked like it did, or it let off with a stitch in, and maybe it's got the time, and then the rest of it's not really quite that, but your mind, at a glance, your mind said, hey, that's what it says, because that's what you thought it said, because you're so used to the saying, right? So our mind tries very hard to put everything into a form or expression that we already think we know, or that we already know, right? Or that we think we already understand, or that fits our personality, and or any biases that we have. And that bias can be for better or worse. In the political arena today, if somebody really is super on the left, if they see anything from the right, they immediately assume it's evil. If they're on the right, they immediately assume that whatever they saw on the left is evil. And they don't even hear past the first couple words. Oh yeah, I know what that is. And it's like, that person could actually be somebody that's coming from where they're coming from, and they started off their sentence in a funny way. And we're going to come back to make the point about, see, there's problems with that. And they don't get that far before the other person's already jumped to all kinds of conclusions and filled in a bunch of things. Or in today's world, even unfortunately, when you put across a fact, if they think they know those facts already, or there's been these talking points about it, even if the fact is just flat out completely wrong, they jump to the rest of the conclusion of what they think it all is, and with the assumption that this is the case. And so this is a common thing for the mind, tends to want to operate this way. And so this is part of perception, right? We mentally and physically organize for simplicity so that we can most expediently accomplish survival-based goals and daily tasks and all that kind of stuff. And so that gets into perception. Part of what you're trying to do as a Tai Chi practitioner, a serious Tai Chi practitioner, is that you're training your body, your mind, your breathing, your thought process, and in some ways your daily habits and activities. And I'm talking about how you stand, how you walk, all sorts of things like that. And you're trying to train them into a different way of thinking and doing and being and interacting. And that as you get for the average person, not for everybody, what you'll find is that typically either relating to posture or relating to things like hydration or relating to the way that we breathe, or the way we eat. And I don't mean just the kind of food, that's sort of an obvious. If you eat a bunch of junk food, well, that's not good for you. But even, did you wolf down that food, or did you take your time and enjoy the food and the process of the eating? And like in the blue zones, so the ones where they've got the light, where people live to be over 90 years old and really extra healthy and happy and all that stuff, they find that most people eat in a social environment, and each meal is kind of more of an event with activity in terms of interaction with other people, as opposed to wolf down your food and go. And there's a health difference between those two things, right? And so with that, one of the things to make those kinds of changes is based around mindfulness, at least in a certain kind of a way, and how you do things. And so your perception of things, in order to make that a more lifelong or daily, fully, weekly, monthly, what you're doing ongoing. Oh, Ty. Anyways, you have to actually look at it, and also as you're doing things to retrain yourself how to stand, how to move, how to breathe. You can't go with what has been going on before, and so you actually have to open up your perception to it in a bigger way in order to not just fall into old patterns, because your mind will automatically seek that old pattern because it's just easier. That's already programmed in, and you're wanting to change that pattern. And then as you're making that pattern deeper and more, like for the knowing, for example, you are trying to get it so that you're taking in much more information than you normally would, and that's part of a continual process. And then there's a lot of benefit that comes out of that. And so it's not just the mindfulness, but it's also that expanding your ability to take in the information and process that information for what it really is, as opposed to how your mind will want to categorize it into something that it thinks it already knows. Anyways, I've said a mouthful here. Is there anything any of you got that you want to add to or say, or question towards the group, or any of that?
One thing I'd throw in is the notion of really changing things so you sense things differently is huge. And whenever I plateau, that's exactly the thing that I'm trying to do. Okay, I need to, strap little squishy things to my feet because I'm not feeling the ground very well, and then take those off, or whatever it is, just to sort of break the norm to recreate some sensitivity.
Yeah, so you're actually talking about a method there for getting your mind to go, well, this isn't the normal, and so that it'll break out of the pattern of what it's been doing and try to expand more. And then when you take off the squishy things, still keep those kinds of things going on, so that then you get a different experience of it, or a different view of it, a different look at it. And an experience, and then being able to integrate the new information into what you have and what you're doing, and make that more automatic, and then do it again in some other way. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and saying that the reverse too, if I'm not doing things like that, I end up being more frustrated because it's just harder to take in different information through a very similar perspective after a while. And so the mixing it up breaks up some of the frustration.
Yep, I get you. Sure, cool. Anybody else?
I guess I will add that it is very difficult to break out of this if you're not extremely mindful of it. It's really difficult to break out of that, like organizing, pattern forming, falling into old habits kind of thing. It's a survival mechanism. It burns calories to think new thoughts, and so your brain tends to not want to do that, and it tends to be really, really lazy, and so it does take conscious effort. It takes exercises like what Greg just mentioned, and things like that, and it takes kind of dedication and perseverance. And Harry, I think you and I can relate some on this, and that the reason that most magic tricks land the way they do is because people grow very kind of comfortable and confident in their own perception of reality, and then you use that to fool them, and it makes it look like something magic happened, even though it was really just kind of a simple trick. And so, yeah.
The magician knows where the people are naturally going to look and what they're naturally going to think, while there's something else going on somewhere else, and comes out of nowhere. Apparently.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent.
And someone else was going to weigh in there. I saw before I started talking.
I can too.
Yeah.
One of the things for myself, and it was really even before being aware through Tai Chi, moving to Maine was something that I feel that was manifest through a change in patterns in my life. My wife and I had decided that we needed a change, and we decided with that change, the only way we would be able to find our way to whatever is next, we had a vague idea of what we wanted, and we started behaving differently. We broke down all the patterns of the life that we used to follow and started changing how we perceive what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it was really strange because after it all kind of like lined up and just happened, when I look back on it, I can't see or prove that I had anything to do with it.
Tell me more. What do you mean?
So what we wanted to do was, our notion was we wanted to live a simple life in a simple place. We were in New Jersey and we just weren't enjoying it the way we used to. You know, the people weren't as enjoyable. Everyone just seemed to have an agenda, and it just wasn't as much. It wasn't what it was. We were younger, I guess. So we wanted to just maybe quit our jobs and go open a business in some rural community. So my wife did that. She quit her job and she started taking part-time jobs just to get experiences of what would it be like to be working in different venues. She worked for a liquor store for a while and realized she definitely does not want to open a liquor store.
Yeah.
But that's what she was doing, and our actions and behaviors, where we used to go into Manhattan and enjoy the restaurants and the scene in the city, we stopped that. We stopped looking for that type of entertainment, and we started looking at what will we do when we have either the small business or whatever happens in our future. And it was strange because then my employer, without any real knowledge on my part, went into a restructuring, and they were trying to do just what we were trying to do, is get out of these populated areas and move their business into more rural communities. What they were trying to do is find, I think, cheaper labor. But as these things were lining up, I spoke to people internally about what was happening, and then I found out more, and I found out they were opening or expanding a location here in Maine, and I applied to relocate, and they paid to move me up here. And my wife had connections to my employer previously, but she used to work for them, and they offered her a job as well. And we just came up here, and everything was great. So
Cool.
we're now living in the simple place, mostly a simple life, except for what's going on with Corona. And when I look back on it, it doesn't seem like I had anything to do with it. It was just, you know, my company made a decision and it just pulled me in. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like, I think you can put what you want into the universe
Yeah.
with some vagueness, and it pulls you there.
That's right.
Yeah, that is right. And some vagueness, but with intention. You have to know what
Yeah.
it you want really, really, and not be committed to any particular kind of path or venue to achieve
Yes.
it. And it will
Yes.
put you in that direction. That's right.
I think a big thing that I still carry with me from that is I think about what are my values, and I act on my values. And while I'm acting on my values, I value the action.
Yeah.
So I'm here now doing the thing that I value, and I'm appreciating it in the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. Yeah. Anybody else?
Okay.
The other thing on Tai Chi with this is that a lot of times people learn how to stand, and then that's how they stand, and then they learn how to breathe, the basic method, and that's how they breathe, and then they learn this is the move, and they do the move, and it's sort of like, okay, bang, there it is, and they go through it like this, and they kind of they get that into a pattern in their mind for this is how this goes, and they kind of stop. And part of what happens working with this perception, working with these different senses and that kind of a thing, is that how much more of this thing can you do? So if I'm standing and relaxing, can I stand even more aligned and better aligned and more and better aligned? And can I relax more and more and more while I'm holding that structure, and then continue that and build it more and more and more and more relaxed, better structure. And then can I breathe more better to all of my cells, and so that my whole body gets the benefit of that, softer and softer and softer, but more and more and more comprehensively. And you keep working on, so it doesn't there's not a finite point of stopping there. It's that it continues to improve, that your feeling of the whole thing continues to expand. And that, like, so when we do our 2-person push hands, you put your hands on there and you expand your mind so that you're encompassing their whole body, and then their whole structure, and then their whole breathing, and then their whole relaxation along with yours. And then what's immediately around you, what's immediately around them, and what's down in the ground, you know, since they're standing on the ground, probably and all of that. But that it really is faster, deeper, wider, larger, softer, faster, and just every kind of those, and that continues. And you're not trying to rush it, but you're not. What happens when somebody goes, okay, that's how you stand, they sort of shut off at that point, and then that's how they stand. And in this case, it's that spigot is still on, and it's going to continue, even though it's continuing at a gradual pace most of the time. Sometimes you'll get a sudden, you know, much more or that kind of a thing, but that it's continual, and that you may plateau a little bit in some aspect or aspects, but that it is a continually more thing. And you're not accumulating it for the sake of accumulating it as much as in this case, we're really talking an awful lot about awareness, and I'm trying to get my awareness to continually increase. When it gets like from a beginner to some place that we get to in development, it begins to become that you can feel inside of another person's body enough that you begin to be able to actually affect what's going on inside of them for a healing result. And then obviously the same thing can apply as you keep going and you get faster and faster and stronger and more to where it can become a martial result too, if you need that. And then the push hands and things really help you in both cases if the practice is really correct and based on that improvement of perception and really refining that perception is what you're really perceiving as opposed to what your brain is filling in and those kind of things. Any thoughts there? I'll leave it all. I'll let you guys weigh in on any of that again, but.
I can speak to that too. I've seen, you know, with my own personal training and with student training that people get trapped in the idea of what something is. So in the very beginning, you can only teach a student so much movement or so much correctness inside the movement.
Yep.
So when they start doing that, they think they have it. And then you give them an adjustment and they think they're doing something wrong or they think that you didn't teach them. So you have to really make sure that they're aware of the bigger process, but not so aware of the bigger process that they try to jump ahead before they're ready. So there is a little back and forth of there. And I see that with myself too. Like when there's a plateau that I'm hitting, I need to either seek guidance from someone like yourself, Master Claire, or a peer who's been going through it with me, who can help me, or I just need to just do it over and over and over and over until I can come up with what is happening, so I can become more aware. You know, I do it like 100 times and just see how it felt.
Cool. Yeah. Yes. And anytime you've hit it, when most people at the point where they realize I'm kind of stuck in this place, what we think of as a plateau like that, sometimes it's because you need a little bit more, like to fill up the room or the area or the thing that you're in to like really take that kind of really get all of the little ramifications of that and to get the full scope of it. And sometimes it's like, okay, for what I've taken in, this is where I'm at. What am I going to need that's going to spark me to take that to a new level and that kind of a thing. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's just a little bitty thing that for the person who is at that point, that's not a little thing. It changes everything that they've had, but they have to be open to doing that where they're going to take in the information and they have to discern or try to discern, you know, try to what's the word I'm looking for here? They have to basically be able to look at it and analyze it and go, what does that do? Why does it do that? Well, what does that feel like? And what did that change? And how did it change it? And what else is coming through because of that new way of doing the thing? What is different than was going on before? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? And it's not that I'm trying to put a value statement to it. It's just what's different about it. And am I getting something of benefit from that? Or is there any negative effect to that? And if so, what is that? And is it something that I'm just doing in error at that place? Or is it something where that's really kind of the wrong direction? Like that. And so that it continually expands. And it is what you're talking about, which is for a new student, you can't teach them like all the nitty gritties of like we've got a video, it's the structure of internal power. And ideally, really a beginning student would learn that. But if you teach a beginning student that, their head will cramp up, it'll hurt typically, and they will quit because it's too much information. And so for them, it's overwhelming and they don't like it. I get somebody that's been doing the art for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they've gone past the beginning. They've really gone out of the beginning stage, and they really are towards an intermediate stage. And I go through those same series of structural training and teachings and information, and it's gold. They love it. And they take it in and assimilate it very rapidly. And they have to go work on it, and it changes things in those positive ways and all that stuff. But they were ready for it now. They weren't ready for it as a beginner. It's just overwhelming. So it is exactly what and then the bigger trick there is to let a beginner know you're at the beginning. There's a whole lot more that the same thing you've got. It's not like people think that the advanced stuff means I'm accumulating more things. And there certainly is plenty of that. But when you go, well, no, it's a restructure and a revamp of that thing you've already got. A lot of times they struggle with that. Well, wait a minute, you already taught me that. Well, I taught you the first grade version or the kindergarten version of that. Now we're going to give you the second and third grade version of that. Now we're going to get up through the 7th and 8th grade. Now we're going to teach you the high school version of that. Now we're going to teach you the bachelor's degree, college level of that. Now we're going to teach you the master's degree level of that. And it's the same skill, but it really is, there's this much more going on there than what would normally appear to a beginner. And if you're gonna excel at the internal arts, you want to be able to look at everything, every little part of it through that lens that I'm talking about, where it's in that kind of an upgrade on the things that you did as a beginner all the way up and through. And I know there are plenty of other things like that. But people get used to the idea, certainly in movement arts, the martial arts, where it becomes, well, I'm learning that new move. I'm learning how to do that new technique. And it's like, there's so much more within the moves you have than what you know. But we're going to have to take the time to train that. And if I just teach you that at the beginning, we're going to spend the first 5 years only teaching you move one. And most of it's going to be tedious and unpleasant because you're not ready for it yet. So, yeah. And then there is a trick there to the timing of that. What were you going to say, Harry?
Well, I was just going to say each student is different. So the trick to the timing of that is very one-on-one. And hopefully as a teacher, you have a good gauge of that with your students. I have a relatively new student right now who's a doctor. And I could tell that he thought he was just going to get with me, get some movement, get a form, and all right, I got Tai Chi now, bye-bye.
Yeah.
And so I don't normally do this with pretty much a brand new student. I wait till they've been with me for a little while, but not too long. And again, it's dependent on the student. I had him watch a roadmap video, and he came back with a completely different attitude. The other thing that I always make sure I do with students is I do upfront set expectations. And I will talk to them about, all right, right now we are just learning the physical part. And the way I'm able to convey to them how it's going to go much further is I do teach them in their first lesson how to align their energy and how to get that electric buzz going.
Sure.
And I tell them now this is something you want to have going on all the time. However, as I'm teaching you the form and you're learning and wondering if the hand goes what way, which way, whatever, there's no way you're going to keep that electric on. So
Yeah,
you can see how
choreography now. Yeah.
So you can see how I've got to get you through some of the physical part before we can even begin to get to the energetic parts that do exist. And then I'm very honest with them about where I am with my training with you. And I say, I'm showing you how to do this. Just know down the line, I'm going to tweak it further. And I'm still getting corrections and tweaks. And I'm a dozen years in, so more or less, or whatever, with Sifu Clear. So it's an ongoing thing. So I try to set that mindset up front. And more often than not, it seems to work. But every once in a while, you get the person that's just.
Well, I really like that you're using the roadmap. That's taichiroadmap.com to do that, because it really is saying it's the same information done physically first, done with the Chi on second, and then Clear Tai Chi is a system. We teach you how, like one of the first classes, second class, you're learning how to feel the energy in that in a basic way, like what you're talking about, and then that's going to expand from there. But it's going to start with that, and then when you're learning choreography, we're not really worried about that yet. You get the choreography down. Now we jump to Chi level and go, let's make sure you can feel and that the energy is correct and that your structure is basically correct enough that really is going on in that. And then the E level, so where's your mind at and all of that. And then we actually go through the levels that are in there and with the material that you have. And so it builds on that. And if you're right, if they watch that and they begin and they really can understand reasonably what's being talked about there, then that really does help to convey the idea that it's this same information, but at a much higher level expression of it. And when people are looking like, but I don't understand, I go, well, math, did you learn kindergarten math, first grade math? Yep. Eighth grade math? Yep. High school math? Yep. College math? Did it change? I mean, 2 + 2 still equals 4, unless we're talking about some other kinds of things, and then it doesn't. And it just depends on the level of math we're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. You can always tell too when your student has watched your roadmap video, because they will come to me with questions. And I'm like, good, you actually watched it. Excellent.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. In Clear Tai Chi, we start Ting Jin skills very early in the program compared to most. And it's one of the most, for my mind, if you said I only get to pick one Tai Chi skill to have, but I get the requirements for what it takes to do that. Ting Jin is, if it's not the number one, it's really close to number one. That with that skill, I could eventually build all of the rest of the kinds of skills that are the higher level Tai Chi. And so we start that really early in our program, and we work on getting that Ting better and better. And we work on getting that Ting faster and faster and more, and perceiving, feeling, processing, interpreting, and getting better and better at interpreting and acting on that information, including the information received from various levels of the body, the Chi, and energy fields. And this is both for healing and for martial art. And that if you had somebody that had Ting going on at that level, and then somebody said, hey, that was Tai Chi, and let's just say they're a naturally gifted, born like empath psychic or something, and they said, is that Tai Chi? I would go, well, if they're doing Tai Chi really well, that's part of where it goes, is to be able to become like that, because you're really working the kinds of skills that will make it like that. But there are other things than just, because it's not just perception of getting the information and then what do I do with it. With the Tai Chi training, you're also learning, well, this is how I apply that. This is how I use that to make myself healthier, to make myself stronger in all these good ways, and to be able to help other people do the same thing. But that it is a more and more and better and like that. And there's a quality of life, a very high quality of life that done properly comes out of that. And then the fun that comes, like with the push hands, and when you're doing with another person, both the fun of just playing and exploring and looking and all of that, and the fun of the interaction and the play as well. And that the more and more you can perceive, the more the game goes from being a very, I'll use the example for the gamers out there, Pong, boing, 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 to becoming three-dimensional, to becoming VR, and that kind of a thing, that it really changes an awful lot like that in ways that are really cool and that are very positively life affecting in a very positive way. The Ting is the key. And by the way, at any point one of you guys want to jump in here and do something that flags me so I know that, right? Ting is the key to the Dongjing knowing. Dongjing knowing is the skill, is the skill that I consider most important for mastery. And actually the Ting Jin, because you have to have the Ting Jin in order to get the Dongjing. And I show examples of that and give you a lot of exercises for that in the video, the Dongjing knowing.
At taichinowing.com.
Yeah, thank you. If I can feel, then I can find and develop any skill that the human body has the potential for. If I can't feel, then it is very hard or impossible to develop higher level skills. It's not like people think they learn a higher level skill and I just do that. And for Tai Chi, for internal martial art and internal healing art too, feeling it is the key to getting really high level good at it and really becoming a master of it. And the mastery is not the end, it's just another stage in the game to higher level skills, right? And the Ting and then the Dongjing, the knowing, those are your key skills to getting to those places. And that doesn't mean you don't have to have other information in, you do. But even with those skills, the vast majority of them, like 99.9%, the Ting Jin and then the Dongjing, that's that knowing, that perceiving, being able to feel all kinds of different stuff, being able to understand what that stuff is, being able to realize that on top of the part, you know that there's more information. Either you've got to expand that awareness and you've got to get better at perceiving and processing what you become aware of, like that. And so I'm going to give you guys a chance to weigh in on that. And I've got like 4 things to ask you, 4, 5, 6 things to ask you. And then that'll be it for today. Anything on what I was just talking about?
I guess I'll say that my experience with all of this has been really dramatic over the last several years in terms of my ability to perceive and pick up things that I never would have before. And I think the best analogy for it that I've ever heard, and it's one that Sifu uses a lot, he's the one who shared it with me, is the kind of the old auto mechanic who, when the car is driving in, the old master mechanic or whatever can kind of hear what's wrong with the car on its way in, and he can be calling out, it needs this, it needs that, it needs the other thing. And the reason for it is that it's not that his perception is any better than anyone else necessarily. It's that he spent time perceiving things and then checking and figuring out what they mean. What does that sound translate into under the hood? And he's done that work enough times that now he just knows when he hears that sound, that's what it means under the hood. And
so let me say this. It doesn't mean that his hearing was better than somebody else's hearing, but his brain's ability to process what he heard and to flesh that out and get the little nuances of the sound in different kinds of ways and really perceive those a lot bigger, stronger, more, and to have a mental understanding of what that means. That brain capacity is dramatically improved. And this is like something that's very important for keeping your mind when you get older and being sharp and not having the dementia and all those kinds of things. Sorry, go ahead.
So, a guy like me who doesn't work on cars can hear that noise and I can hear it. There's maybe a junior mechanic who can be listening to that noise, be kind of tinging and thinking what does that mean? I've got to check that out. That sounds funny. I got to figure out what is going on under there that's producing that. A master mechanic who's been through that process enough times on enough different cars in enough different ways can hear that same thing coming in and he just knows what it is. And that's basically the kind of the levels. And so the first step in that process is really changing your natural autopilot kind of level of perception and engaging it and turning it into listening or listening is the word they use in Chinese, but ting, it's that active perception. It's that you're perceiving, you're actually trying to listen. You're putting pieces together with the information that you're gathering. And if you do that enough, with enough skill sets and over enough time and in enough different ways, the variety of information that you get and the pieces that you put together in the way that you wrap your head around it, it becomes knowing. And so like there are things that I can see now when new students come in the door, when they're like walking towards me, I can see like, okay, your hips are out of alignment, you've got lower back issues, and your knees are probably hurting. And they're like, how do you know that? I've taken 2 steps in the building. Well, I can see it. But it's because I've talked to enough people and I've pushed with enough people and I've experienced it enough and I've wrapped my head around it in a certain kind of way that now I just know what I'm looking at. And it doesn't, it's not automatic. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a process, but it is a process that there's a reliable method for getting there. And he actually teaches it, and it's available at taichinowing.com. That's what that course is about, is that method of taking what you've got now and stepping it up to the point where you just know these sort of incredible things, where other people don't understand how you're doing it, but it's because you've done that work.
You're learning how to perceive it, and then you're learning how to process what you perceived, so that you understand what it was that you perceived. And or at least can put it into a functional thing. Anything you can get your mind on with that understanding in depth, like inside your own body and or inside somebody else's body you've got contact with, you can influence and affect. And if you can't feel it, you can't affect it. That's in your own body or somebody else's. If you're trying to make a change to it with your mind, and maybe with limited movement inside your body and or limited contact with somebody else, and eventually basically either no contact or just the lightest touch anywhere, you have to be able to get your mind into the place fully, be able to perceive it fully, and then because you're manipulating it with your mind, it will affect the area, it will make changes. And so that really is the game that Tai Chi is all about, is being able to do that, to get to Tai Chi, like the symbol Tai Chi, but what that Tai Chi represents in terms of that true balance. That if it's out of balance and I can perceive that properly, that I should be able to bring it back to a place of balance. And of course, if it's out of balance enough, then it's not even about perception in the way we're talking about yet. It's okay, you got to have better alignment. Okay, you got to have better relaxation. Now we're in a place where we can figure out what the internal, because that's sort of towards the external side of it a little bit. What else inside of that is out of balance, and you can begin to perceive that, and then literally at a mind level start to manipulate it, mind and spirit level, and have those effects take place. But you have to do the work.
So Sifu, this is, I brought up the question, and this is really interesting to me. So so a lot of what you teach uses internal push hands as the way to develop a skill and also to test whether it works.
That's right. That's why if somebody's doing push hands where they're just shoving and it's shove hands, it's no good, because what are you feeling? And the answer is, well, I'm feeling the other guy go away from me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing, and that one thing isn't really helping you in the development aspect of what we're after. So I've had people come where and I'll try to play with people at level, because I can jack it all the way up to where I'm playing at a master level. And then, I hung in there with the 300 plus pounders, where I only lost the championship by 1 point like that. Okay. And I weighed 202 pounds at that moment in time and had broken my back in 4 places 6 months earlier.
Yeah,
right?
he did the brace off for less than a month.
Yeah, I hadn't had the
Begging
brace
him
off
not
for
to
a
do
month.
it. I was worried he was going to kill himself. But
anyways, the point being, so that for normal push, I'll get people come in and then they're actually moving me around a bit, and they're like, well, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, you want me to be king of the hill here? Okay, shove me, bam, 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 bam. Now, okay, we're satisfied I can move you. Now come back up and put hands on you. Go, well, why are you letting me move you around like that then? Because I don't care whether you move me or not. Only thing I care about right now is what do I feel inside myself in my response to what you're doing and inside of you, because I'm learning from that consistently, well, sometimes inconsistently, but constantly. And I am processing that information and getting better and better and better at both processing deeper and more and faster, And I can use that information to do healing stuff and to do healing stuff both better and faster and more. And it will directly give me martial capability, martial self-defense capability as well. And so I'm building that. And so whether I got moved all around the room, in fact, maybe I want you to move me all around the room. That's not really the point of it right now. And so if they were shoving, and I've done this with people that were, Tai, one of the guys that he introduced me to in LA that was a decent push hands guy. And we pushed, and the interaction with him was, I was talking to him about what I'm talking to you guys right now. And he said, well, how much can you pick up? Like, so there's a limit to that. And I went, I haven't found one yet. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, shove me. Boom, he shoves me, and I don't remember if I think I moved him the first time, bang. And I was like, what'd you feel? And he said, well, I felt me trying to shove you, and then you shoved me, and then I went flying. You know, I went back. And I said, well, this is what I felt. And I listed off, and it was like a dozen things, and his jaw dropped. Right. And he said, well, that's good when you're doing, like, when you're on the receiving side. And I might have even let him move me, but then I told him all this stuff, and it was accurate stuff. And then he said, well, that's fine, but what about what am I getting as the person who shoved you? And I said, oh, let's get in there and defend. And I boom, and I shot, and immediately on touch, boom, sent him. And I said, now here's what I picked up that time, and lifted off another dozen things, and his jaw hit the floor again. And I said, you're supposed to be learning on both sides. By the way, I wouldn't normally play it where I'm shoving you like that. I'm letting you know that's possible and should be. And if you're at a level, that should be happening. But in the beginning, if you were just shoving like that and you can't perceive anything, that means we're going too fast, too hard, too strong, to everything for where you're at. And you have to start at the beginning and go, what am I perceiving? And that perception, that amount of perception, what you're perceiving, how you're processing that, and getting the fuller scope of it in every way possible. That's got to really improve a lot. And then you can start to pick it up with some speed and some power at the same time. And I want to be able to do that for just overall stuff. At the same time, my normal play is normally done at about the speed of slightly faster than slow Tai Chi. I don't mean the excruciatingly slow Tai Chi, but at a pace of like the way that I'm kind of talking to you now. It's not really in a hurry. It's not super slow, but I'm taking my time. And with that, I'm trying to really really magnify the perception and what I'm able to get from all that perception.
So my question is, like right now during COVID, many of us are not doing any push hands.
Sure.
And so how much can we get from the DVD in the absence of pushing hands?
Which DVD?
The Dong Jing, the Knowing DVD.
Yeah. So are you married? Do you have a wife?
No, I'm alone.
Yeah, you're just alone. There's nobody. Do you have a dog?
No, no, I avoid breathing bodies as much as I can.
Okay. Yeah, and so I'm asking those questions because as long as it was a body,
yeah,
then you could use that body as long as they're willing to stand there for you. And even if they're just maybe willing to put in just not much pressure, but like, okay, I'll push you a little bit.
Okay.
But anything they would do like that. So that would be my first suggestion, including whether it be a dog or a cat or.
So you're not telling me to get married so I have someone to push with?
Well, that's why I got married. Okay. That's not why everybody gets married. Yeah. Anyways, without that, then you're going to want to be able to do it with apparatus of some kind, and it's not going to be ideal,
Okay.
but you can.
Well, here's the other thing I will add is that this is a point that I was going to bring up earlier, and so I think it's a good time to interject it, is that we've been talking a lot about why Ting is super important for developing high level skill and how it leads to knowing. And it's like, if you really want Tai Chi mastery, you're going to have Ting and eventually. And people can hear that and think like, well, but I don't want to be a Tai Chi master. I just want to get healthy. And so I'll just do the form. And it's like, no, no, no. No, Ting is really, really critically important for that part too. Just think about how much of a difference for your health would it make if you were able to perceive and know that you were getting dehydrated before you got dehydrated. Just that alone, how much healthier you be as a human being, like for the rest of your life, if you had that Ting in that way. And then think about all the other things that are going on in your body that you can Ting and turn into knowing, and all the other senses that, if your joints are creaky versus something else that you could take action on, or you're getting that tickle in the back of your throat, it's time to boost the vitamin C and zinc and stuff and not get sick as much or as often. The Ting at the beginning is actually one of the most important factors for getting those kind of health benefits. And you can, so the DVD, the knowing DVD, is really done, it's taught from the perspective of learning how to Ting in someone else. And that's very valuable. And for long-term Tai Chi, you absolutely want that. But the information in that DVD in that course is really about turning what you perceive into processing it and turning it into what you know. And so you can take that same information and the things that you would Ting in yourself, your balance, your your mobility, like not having the double weighted error, substantial in the body, your digestive system. Are you full? Are you digesting? Are you not? Are you thirsty?
Your blood pressure, which you might use a machine to do to begin with, but you want to get so used to being able to actually feel that you can feel if it's going hot, and you can literally feel it enough to know when you're breathing and relaxing and doing the things that would bring it down, that it's coming down, and that you can regulate it like that. Anything that has to do with the blood pressure, the oximeter, how do I do that? And while watching the numbers and breathe so that the oxygen level in the body goes up, and then learning to feel that so that you don't need the oximeter to do it, that you can normally feel if there's a bit of a deficit, and or if you're doing the things that would add more. And you're still Tinging to get all that is Ting to be able to feel that stuff. And you don't want to always have to use a device to do it. You want to build it so that your Ting is there so that you can actually feel it.
Yeah, the device is just the feedback to allow you to turn that Ting into knowing. And then once you know, then you don't need the device, right?
So you're saying you could get a lot of value from the DVD, at least in terms of personal health, even in the absence of a partner to push hands with, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to understand it in terms of the training progression that is trying to be communicated, and apply that, because he, in that DVD, in that course, we're only able to touch on a few different kind of Ting skills, and the real focus of it was what is the progression from taking it from Ting to knowing. And so then the goal is to do that with everything that you can possibly Ting. And so there's a bunch of stuff going on just internally that you need, Ting for, and that improves your Ting to develop it. One of the first things in level 1 is that eyes closed, standing on one leg. It shows you how out of touch you normally are with your balance just coming in the door. And so, Tinging those things and improving those senses internally and turning that into knowing, that'll go a long way for you health-wise, for your Ting and your E skills, and for kind of getting ready to apply that to touching hands and to feeling inside of other people when you're able to get back out there. I know, Phil, you've got some experience with that already. But even if people didn't have that coming in the door, they could use the training progression from the knowing program and apply it to the kinds of things that we're talking about on the call right now.
And they could get that from the DVD.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And Phil, you have experienced a long distance connection.
Yes.
So you could certainly work on Ting and feeling into another person with that method as well, which I know is very advanced, especially for, many people that may be watching this video. We don't talk about it a whole lot, but you've experienced it where we make that long distance connection to each other, and
That's
you
right.
could use that.
Cool.
Absolutely follows this same kind of training progression. When you're first learning the Fagong, you just got to learn to feel at all what you're feeling. And then you kind of start wrapping your head by talking to the person about, like, well, what is that? What I feel this thing, what does that mean? And then when you feel it enough times, it's like you've got arthritis there, and then how did you know? And, it's, well, I felt it enough that I know what that feels like. And so it is that same kind of progression in that same way. It's just a different set of things that you are tinging.
Right, and then, so Harry, your point is really well taken. So if I don't have anyone to work with, I can work on the skills, and then if I can do it remotely, then I can do the same kind of refinement on another person just remotely.
There's a lot that can be done remotely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's cool.
More than I thought was possible. And there's probably more than I've discovered myself yet playing around and experimenting.
There is a progression. It's not like you come in and they, hey, I've been doing this for 3 hours. I'm ready to do this long distance through a screen, right? There is a progression there to build to that level of ability. But
Phil has experienced it.
There is a progression there to do that.
Yeah.
I'm letting that for folks at home that are listening to us to know that is a thing, and that it's not just magical falls out of the sky. Is step by step, and when it's the appropriate step. Now, for some of you guys, I taught you how to do that a bit early, only because with COVID, I knew, okay, this is the situation we're in, and so I'm going to expose that to you now. When normally you probably would have been a good full level ahead of where you were at the time before I would have really opened that up.
Well, thank you for opening it up, Sifu.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, with the world being like it is with COVID and all that, I was like, no, you got to be able to work and do the things and really continue to build your skill. And there's a lot of things that are sort of off limits right now, but we can do this. And even though it's a higher level thing, it is a thing. And, that's why I showed you guys like I did, where I did a bunch of you all at the same time, long distance through the video, and did it so it would have that holy crap, and followed up by go think about it. You're going to be able to, you guys have got a level where you're going to be able to do this too. Yeah. And so, yeah, cool.
By the way, you can all thank me for suggesting that on the podcast call that where we talked about what we can do when we're all stuck indoors.
Nice.
Because and then thank Harry for actually doing it and coming back the next week and going like, wow.
Yeah, my brain fried with that. I couldn't believe it, and then it just kept going. Oh my God, I could see the energy, and it kept going. So,
and it will keep going. There's more from where you're at on that for sure.
All right, great. And now a word from our sponsor.
Mind over matter can be a confusing idea for a lot of folks. We just don't see it demonstrated that often. You hear about things like a mother lifting a car to save her baby that's underneath, but how can we reliably tap into that kind of power every time? Not just in extreme and unpredictable cases, but whenever we choose. With the right instruction and a few simple drills, even beginners can get mind over muscle power in almost no time at all. My name is Richard Clear, and internal power is what I do. I've been researching and sharing the secrets of effortless internal power for over 40 years. I want to spread those secrets far and wide. So I created a unique online program that gets results fast. The results are so good that I offer a money-back guarantee. Find out more about how it works at internalpowerkeys.com. That's internalpowerkeys.com. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So the last things, Ty, you doing good today?
Yes, I'm doing very well today. In fact, Harry was very eloquent when he was describing my new student today. He's a psychiatrist, and he was leaving my main competitor because he didn't know anything about Ting or anything else. And this is something that we were going over this morning.
Yeah. Cool.
My competitor does not even talk about Chi whatsoever. And he's like, well, I get this tingling in my hands and everything. Is that supposed to happen? I'm like, okay, let's go deep into this.
Yep, let's just dive right in.
But yeah, it's been a great morning.
Cool.
So Ty, one of my major Tai Chi instructors taught me a lot of stuff, and he devoted a huge amount of time and energy to me. So I'm forever indebted to him. But I would talk about feeling the energy and how cool it was and all this and that stuff. And he says he just ignored it. He pushed it away because he thought it distracted him.
Yeah, oh, it distracted him from the real Tai Chi, right? Yeah.
No, Phil, I pushed it away also. And that two things. One is that I had this ability since childhood, and I saw things I didn't want to see. And then Master Clear has helped me turn it back on. And the other thing is that I had these abilities, but I had no way of explaining it or teaching it to anyone. And now he's shown me how I can teach these things to other people.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew this in the Marine Corps because, and I was like, sniper, how do you know? I don't know. I just know.
Right, and you could have taught other people there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would have been, that's a big deal. Yep. Cool.
As long as they're on with the good guys. Yeah. And then, yeah, so part of what, that is one of the things that happens when people have it naturally, is that a lot of times what happens is they see everything they didn't want to see, and they don't see the good stuff, or there's so much of the bad stuff that it overwhelms. And it's kind of like going into a room, and instead of seeing, hey, there's some happy people in here, you go over and you see all the dust on the floor and all the little dirt or stain that's on anywhere on the wall, and you're focused in on that. And because it's such a not directed in any way, and the person just has the ability, they like can't help themselves but to do that. And so that doesn't mean I don't want to be aware of the entire room from top to bottom and the people in it and all these other factors. It's just I also want to be able to discern and tune out what I want to tune out. I don't mean tune it out like I'll never be able to see it. I mean be able to go, hey, I'm going to turn that volume down a lot so I'm not being distracted and unhappy and overwhelmed by the things here I don't really want to be looking at and focusing in on. And I can focus in on the things I do want and that are good and of quality and useful and all that stuff. And so if something bad enough comes out of it that you need to see it, you want to be able to see that. But it's kind of, and maybe a way to put this is, if you were going to cross a really busy street, you can focus in and see every fast car, or you can see the spaces between the cars and where there's enough of a gap that you can cross the street without getting ran over. Which one do you want to pay attention to? And the answer would be both. Okay, but which one are you going to use to cross the street? You're looking for places where there's a big enough gap that you can cross through that lane without getting ran over. And yeah, you're looking at the speed of the car that's coming, but you're using the gaps. You're not crossing the road where the car is, because otherwise you're running into the car or the car's running into you. And so what happens is when people have natural ability, a lot of times they just see all the fast cars and it's dangerous and it's scary and it's all that. One of the things, and I grew up inner city, that I and the kids that I grew up around could do is we could go out on a busy street and walk out into traffic in a way that anybody that's not from there or not from a super busy place like that. And I remember the first time I saw it as a kid, I was like, oh, holy shit, you're going to get ran over. And it was like, no. And I saw them walking and I was like, yeah, they're walking through the traffic. That's weird. Okay. And then I got to where I could do it. And same thing. I'd be with somebody else and they'd see me do it. And you could hear them losing their mind, like, oh my God. And it was like, you're focused on the wrong part of this. And yeah, you shouldn't try to do it right now. You will get ran over. But it was that kind of a thing. And then you learn to do that. And it doesn't mean you ignore completely the other stuff. That'll get you ran over too. It's just, where's the focus? What is it you see and how do you see it? And how do you perceive that? And how do you work with that? And those kinds of things. Sheila?
Yeah, so I haven't been able to get on until just now, but going back through, I have been listening. I actually live in a blue zone and also in a country that's been ranked among the happiest in the world.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that we live in of overload and, too much information, too much stimulus. And so most people are shut down to a certain degree, just kind of out of self-defense.
Yeah, self-defense.
And I think because it's too much, right? So I think one of the great things about training Ting is that you're able to discriminate between things which, influence you positively or negatively.
Yep.
And so just along with exactly what you're saying, and it sounds kind of like, something silly, but just focus on the good things, right? And try to tune down the bad things a little bit, not to the point where you're putting yourself into danger, but just because, you know, too much negative influence is going to make you ill.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and the other thing is there's different ways and views to look at something. So if you're monitoring the inside of your own body, if you focus, the average person, if they focus in on just the heart, their heart rate will speed up, their respiration will then speed up, their blood pressure will then pick up. And it's that I want to be able to perceive my heartbeat, but not by focusing in directly on the heart like that, because it's overwhelming stimulus to the heart and what's going on there to do it that way. So there are smarter ways to do that in order to get that calming, relaxing, slowing down result that you want, while keeping great ability to perceive what's going on and then to influence what's going on. And so there is a way, like this, that discrimination that we're talking about, and how you view it and how you perceive that information from viewing it. And by I'm using the word view, but listen or hear or feel or, you know, whatever it is. And so, yeah, that's equally important. And then I want to be able to go in and focus on any part really well. And I also want to be able to unfocus on any part, but I don't want it to be unfocused from now on, or focused on for the most part from now on. I want to be able to have a very wide, the wider range I can get, and to be able to really look at it good and close, or really look at it from far away and barely perceiving it. My choice. And you want that choice and that ability to know.
And I think that's one of the great things about, training through the Tai Chi is that it teaches you how to find that balance. And Ting in particular, it's not only in, but if you're training Ting through practicing Tai Chi, then it helps you to find that balance. What you're perceiving and how it's going to influence you. And it's not just about internal for myself, it's also external for all of your surroundings or other people that you want to help, or that even if they're attacking you, so that you can perceive them better. And I have a little story about training Ting, which I think some people might find interesting. So I was doing the methods that you have taught us to help us increase Ting. And it starts by going internally, and then it moves slowly outward, and then into the room, and then perhaps the entire building, and then outside of the building, and continue further and further away. And as I was doing this, I finished the salary night and the house, and then I was outside of the house into the yard, and I became aware of some splashing and sort of a distress kind of feeling. And so almost immediately I realized one of the dogs had to be in the pool, and not in a happy way. Yeah. So I obviously dropped everything and ran outside, and I pulled one of the dogs out, and she was exhausted, which means she had been there for quite some time. And this happened fairly early in my training, and it just completely convinced me. You know, that's another thing about Ting, is that sometimes you say, well, yeah, maybe, or I'm not sure, but eventually you get to a point where you say, no, this is real. And I know for a fact that that dog had been in the pool for quite some time, and I did not perceive her distress or the sound of the water until I got to that sort of ring outside of myself during the training. Yeah. And it just convinced me, 150%. So in case anyone has doubt, do some of the exercises and see where it gets you, because I'm sure that we have that dog with us today because I was doing that practice.
I'm hearing you. Cool. Yeah. Excellent. That is excellent. The last thing I did want to ask about here, unless there's anybody else that wanted to weigh in on any of that. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about for today's call here is, what is your favorite Ting experience or Ting teaching lesson?
Ting, my favorite.
So that was your favorite, one of your favorite Ting experiences was saving the doggy. I get it.
Yeah. For sure, absolutely. And then just yesterday, I had a brand new group of complete beginners who had never done any kind of Tai Chi in their life. But a couple of them were sort of more sensitive individuals. And so I had them actually place their hands on my back and see what they could feel, and they hit it straight on. So that was really exciting to me to understand that I was getting some students coming in who already had a certain degree of sensitivity. So
Absolutely.
that's a very nice experience that I just had
Yep.
yesterday.
You don't have to have sensitivity when you come in. Clear Tai Chi does a very good job of really teaching that to you. In fact, Dong Jing is about that. What's the address there?
TaiChiKnowing.com.
Yep. But if somebody comes in and they've already got ability as a teacher, that's always fun, because then you can really get into some nicer, deeper water really quick, not too deep, but deep enough to where it's very fun for us and the student, right, like really quick. And so that's cool. Yeah. And our system excels at this specific thing because it is kind of our, feel the energy is our thing. So Ting, yep, go ahead.
So probably my my favorite experience, at least the one that I like to talk about every once in a while. We had a fellow. We've got a student who comes and sees us regularly now from New Mexico. But the first time that he ever came out, I was talking to him kind of off to the side, and he had some energy training recently, and he was telling me, he was describing what they had taught him, and he was kind of showing me, and I had been doing a lot. I'd started teaching the beginner classes at that point. I was teaching our Tai Chi classes, and I was leading warm-ups regularly where we were doing a lot of like hold the ball and moving the energy that kind of way. And I had noticed that looking in the mirror and with my black stuff on, that I could really kind of pick up on the sort of the energy connections in between my hands. I could actually kind of see them. And I was starting to develop that ability more and more. And when this guy talked to me about what the people had taught him, he said, when my arms are like this, then the energy moves a certain way. And as soon as he started to say that, I could see it, like it lit up, like in the space around his arms and in between his hands, like it looked like it was glowing. And I was like, it is doing what they said. I can see it's doing what they said. And I think I could tell that he kind of he wasn't really sure if he believed that or not. And so then he said, well, and then they said, when you move your hands out and you go out like this, that the energy runs in like tubes on your arms. And I could see it, and it did do that. But in between, when he moved his hands out and when they were out like that, like right around here, it made these like almost wings under his arms where it was like connected, where I could see like looking inside of a ball, sort of. If you cut away half of the ball, and you could see like this kind of curved wing right there, sort of under each arm and connected into his body. And I could see the energy itself move and change as he was moving his body, and I could see it flowing, and it like clicked on clear as day. And
Matt, I can't see the flow, but as you describe it, I can see you lighting up.
Yeah, it was one of the more exciting moments of my training, because it was really like it wasn't sort of kinda, it was like there were lights in the space there somehow, like it was glowing, and it was visual, and it wasn't my mind's eye recreating it or nothing. I could see it, and everything that he was describing, I saw it happening in real time, like as he was talking about it, but before he said it. And so, it was very, very sort of validating in a certain kind of way. It was sort of the proof of the pudding kind of thing. But it was, I don't know. It was a great sort of highlight in my training.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Matt, these were things that he saw.
He couldn't see it.
Oh, he couldn't see it.
He was feeling it.
He was feeling
he was feeling it, and you could see it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Who's going next?
Well,
So,
I have a story.
I had an experience, and it wasn't me that had it. It was someone else. But
Okay.
it's kind of like what the possibilities are, and I don't totally
Your students,
understand
or
this.
was this one?
I'm
of your,
sorry?
Was this one of your students?
Actually, no. It was someone that I just knew, and she was really sensitive to seeing energy, and so I would do I would do the yang form, and she could see it looked like one color, and if I did the Wu form, it looked different to her.
Yeah, sure.
And if we did the Wu form with the twisting, it was one way, and if you didn't do the twisting, it wasn't nearly as rich.
Yeah.
And then the spookiest thing was I could think, I haven't trained I've had very little training in Xing Yi and very little in Bagua, but at that time I had none. And I could think Bagua or Xing Yi, and she said my energy changed.
And
Which
she could tell
is
when you were thinking.
just thinking of them and not having trained in them. So I don't know. I don't know what all that's about, but it's sort of like, that certainly is a wow moment for me.
Yeah. Now, had you seen any Xing Yi or Bagua? So when you thought about it, was there something that went through your mind about what that would be like, or that kind of a thing? Or was it that you hadn't even laid eyes on it? You didn't even know how it would be?
I think I had seen a little Xing Yi, but I mean a little Bagua, but I'd never seen any Xing Yi. And I didn't, and when I was thinking of it, I was just thinking of the name. I wasn't thinking of movements.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's really interesting. And I don't know what it means, but it's really, really interesting to me.
Sound and tone and sound, including even if it's your mind that's enunciating it as opposed to your mouth that's enunciating it, has different vibratory quality. Mm-hmm. Something can be soothing, something can be frenetic.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. And so Bagua,
Yeah.
Xing.
Yeah.
There's a different quality there. And so if she's really like empathically gifted like that, there's a likelihood that she would pick that up even when you were thinking, especially if she can pick up thought a bit, which again, it's actually, you learn it in our system how to do that over time. It's obviously higher up in the program, but it's there. The progression is designed to get you to that kind of a place, not so you can go around and be super spy or anything immoral or improper. But there's other uses for that are very useful, including having a loved one that's out of sight, out of hearing distance and all that stuff, and they're having the distress thing, and you're aware of it. Anyways, so yeah, cool.
Yeah, I actually saved my nephew's life from drowning in a pool because of that. Kind of like the Sheila story, except that he was not treading water; he was fully under the water, and all you could see was his hands.
Yeah, this is one of the trips home you made.
Yeah, this was a couple of years ago, so 3 years ago now.
Okay. All right. Ty, you were getting ready to speak there a minute ago. Sorry for the.
No problem. I kind of hesitant to tell this story because I kind of lost some of my Tai Chi principles because of it. I was doing push hands in a monthly group, and one of the people there said, well, I'm going to stop pushing with you, talking to somebody else, and go and push with Tai because occasionally I can push him out. And I'm like, oh. And then we started pushing hands, and I would not let him push me out. It's kind of a mixture of ego and things that I shouldn't have been doing. And he says, so you've just been being kind to me. I'm like, no, I've been trying to learn, trying to understand what's going on. I'm not here to push people out. I'm here to learn. Yeah. And fortunately, that seemed to stick with him also.
Okay.
We're not here for our egos. We're here to learn something.
Yeah.
And working on knowing on Ting was what I always do when I go to push hands.
Cool. And so the fact that it made that positive change in that person is what you're saying. That made that a favorite experience.
Right, because he realized that that's how I got into my level was by not letting my ego make the better of me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got a great partner in the doggy there.
Yeah.
Or Thunder, we got the
Yes.
catching on the
Loves
push
push
he
hands.
wins more often than not. But that's for me being there interacting with him a little bit.
He has he's got like happy Jing.
Well, yes, he does. And he's about 30 pounds heavier since you saw him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What is that? Put in that now? 200, 180?
No, he's like 230, 240.
30. Good Lord. Yeah. Wow.
It's a good thing all your furniture is sturdy, man.
It's good thing that your doggy's friendly.
Yeah, right.
He's not always friendly. He's actually a trained attack dog.
Oh, I understand. I mean, just a general demeanor though, as he's
Yeah.
not
Exactly.
ones that that you would. There are dogs that are trained attack dogs, but you wouldn't really want a kid around them. Even some of the police dogs that I've seen, they're like when they're taking them and showing them with the kids, they're like, kids, you can't really pet this dog like this and like that because they'll likely bite you.
No, he's not a hard dog. In fact, I wouldn't own a dog like that.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, no, I'm with you, and that's what I'm saying. Your doggy there is very, very happy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he's not capable. That's a mistake. People take kindness for weakness, and no, it's not the same thing. Of course, with Thunder, that would be a little hard to do.
Yeah.
Kind, but I'm not seeing any weakness anywhere.
That's also a tribute to his owner and trainer, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
He's got a good demeanor because he has a sweet owner.
And his breeder, his owner was smart enough to get from a very good breeder.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else for the Ting experience or your favorite Ting experience or your favorite Ting teaching lesson?
Harry. I knew he had something.
All right. It's actually a very difficult question because there's so much. I'm like, well, what on earth do I pick? Usually it's the most recent thing I've learned that's blown my mind.
Right.
So I've got the thing that I've learned and then the thing that I like teaching. The thing that I just learned that, and I know I'm at the baby level of this, is feeling not only my own, but my opponent or partner's spirit. Wow. That's holy cow. The thing that I like teaching, it's not one of the highest level things, but one of the reasons I like teaching it is because I see almost the immediate reaction and benefit that it gives to my students. And that is whole body breathing. And I use internal push hands once I've gone through it with them, and I usually take it step by step, piece by piece, like breathe through your shoulders, breathe through this, breathe through that, breathe through that. And then we push hands, and I will be the one to say, okay, I've purposely got something shut off that I'm not breathing through, and I want you to find it and feel it. So there's where the Ting comes into that. And then it makes it that much easier for them. So I've got, a couple of the classes I teach per week are senior citizens, and to see the immediate benefit they get from that, learning to feel into their own knees or their own hips or whatever it is and breathe through that and provide the relief. That's why I love teaching that.
Cool. And anybody specifically you taught it to that stands out as being like you were really that was like one of your favorite times teaching that to somebody?
Yeah, to Chris Walsh, who had to leave our call today. When I showed him that, he's like, that's a complete game changer, as we're pushing hands. And, I'm like, you're not breathing here. You're not breathing there. Boom, boom, boom. You're gone. Now fix that. Breathe there. Oh, and so that was a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah. By the way, I would say that somewhere in the neighborhood of about a third of Harry's experiences that he would say are towards the top end of the fun part of the thing involve boom boom of some kind.
All right, now there's a lot less of that nowadays.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. Okay. Art.
You're still unmuted, Art.
Well, I really don't have any particular Ting stories that I feel are.
Anything that when you first learned to feel it really, really made you gave you some wow factor, like, wow, I wouldn't even have thought you could have felt that, or that it changed how you thought about things that prior to that?
Well, actually, I could elaborate on that in two ways. And the first one that comes to mind is is just this discussion with the different features and facets of Ting that people have expressed and talked about more in depth. And as we're sitting here, and I'm sort of, I can put some of that thought in mind. For example, with Matt's story about the man feeling the energy and Matt seeing it, and I, not that I can see the energy, but I, as he was talking later and other people were talking, I could feel the variations on the energy as I opened my hands, and that I can feel how this, in working with someone else, could apply. Could apply, and also Sheila's story. I was sitting here, sort of sending out the Ting sensations beyond the house, and I didn't get a particular feeling of anything other than feeling more aware of sensing outside, that it felt
It starts with that.
more, more powerful or more sensate than it had, and just
More awareness. Yeah.
right, gave me, because of her experience and the potential for it, it gave me a little more impetus to be more aware. And then just getting back to my beginnings introductions and first learning about and feeling energy, that was a real eye opener, in a sense that this is more than just sort of choreography, a light dance. I can, even though at that point I couldn't really do much with it, I felt the energy, and from then I just been working, and especially with your help and all your other students working with me, just developing it more and more, and working on getting better at it, so I can do more with it, whether in a health aspect or for self-defense, or just strengthening my own body. Say, I've been working with it and found it all very beneficial.
Yeah, cool. So I would like to give you guys a specific one, but I've got like tons and tons and tons of cool Ting experiences and tons and tons and tons of cool Ting teaching lessons and all that kind of thing. If I was going to tell you one that stands out to me a little bit for one of my favorite experiences with it over the last, I don't know, half dozen years now. One of them was when I first, like for most of my life, my dad owned a comic book shop to begin with, but then ended up with a metaphysical bookstore. And he started the metaphysical bookstore stuff when I was about 20, so 36 years ago. And so with that, they had the different stones and rocks and gems, and you can buy, and this one does this and this one does that. And I thought, well, okay, that's cute. And every once in a while, you could hold a stone that was somehow really specific. The one that comes to mind is a stone that's black, that's got a very funny kind of a feel to it. And if you've ever felt magnets and you're trying to feel, those tend to have a funny feel to them too. I'm talking about stuff that the average person can feel like that. But beyond that, I hadn't thought much about it. And then Harry actually showed me a stone that he said, this stone has some really wild properties in terms of what you feel when you're interacting with it. Handed me the stone, and immediately was like, whoa, because I could feel all this stuff. And then, of course, went on a binge of, well, let me feel that stone and let me feel that stone, and found that the different qualities there, that I could manifest the quality off the stone into my whole body in ways that were palpable, noticeable, and usable in a way that is what they talk about, including you could hand me a stone. I don't know what the stone is, and I could tell you a number of things about that stone that if you take out the book for people that really do this and look it up, it's what I'm feeling is what they're saying that stone does. And then
he had done this already with like 3 or 4 stones when the owner of the stones came in, and he started describing, like, with this one I felt that, and with this one I felt that, and with this one I felt that, and he was like, the owner was like, that's what the book says it's supposed to do.
And so, yeah. And what's that, Harry?
You're
on mute.
No, I was just like, yeah, of course. Your Ting is on target.
Well, I'll be honest. I thought it was some kind of new age nonsense. So,
Yeah, I always thought it was too,
yeah.
until yeah.
And then with Sheila, was it the last time you were here with the essential oils, or have you been here once since then? Last time?
Last time.
Yeah, last time she had all these essential oils, and it was the same experience, but now with the essential oils and the same thing. I thought this was people selling nice scents, telling you they do things, and they actually do things to your energy field that it picks up on. It's just most people can't feel it, and in development wise, I can feel it great, and so it was interesting. And of course, there's always that every once in a while we'll pick up one and they'll be like, well, this stone's supposed to do this, this, and that. And I'll go, that's not what I'm feeling. And then you'll pick up another, and then that was one of the interesting things. You'll pick up another stone that's the same kind of stone, but is different somehow. And there is variation from stone to stone. It's usually slight, but every once in a while you'll find one where it's like, this one's not exhibiting those qualities or those properties for some reason. Anyways, I haven't done enough of it with the essential oil thing, but the essential oils, it's the same idea. And so for myself, I don't care to develop that into a business. I really like what it is that we do. And I'm full-time plus working at promoting clear Tai Chi and helping people to get that. But if I had one of you or more that were really super interested in developing a rock, gem mineral for that kind of stuff, and the essential oil business, and helping to develop to the point where you really can feel what that's doing with the energy field, and what if somebody comes in and they've got certain kinds of problems or certain kinds of issues or things they're trying to accomplish, which ones of those are going to help them to do that. Now, I will say that part of being the Tai Chi person is that for me, I would rather be able to change my energy and to affect it by feel without using any outside stimulus. At the same time, a lot of people that want it for basic health, they'll do a little bit of Tai Chi, but they're not interested in going that far in the development of the training. It's not everybody. And probably if you're listening to the podcast, you're wanting to go into the deeper parts. Cool. That's what we're here for. But if I had somebody that was just like older and like, okay, yeah, I'll do a little bit of Tai Chi with you, but I'm feeling bad this way. And you've got this essential oil or gem that they had on them is going to make a change in their energy field. It's going to have a positive impact on that. Well, this just seems too easy, and it could be quite lucrative if somebody was really going to be all about that. Anyways, or if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're already in that field, I've met one of the things we figured out when we went to the gym shops was that a lot of the people in the stores were like, oh yeah, that gym does this gym does that, and I'd be feeling something else about it or talking to them or how it occurred to us. But I asked somebody something, I was looking at it, and Harry and I were standing there like pushing with stuff to check things out. And they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm feeling the stones doing this and this and this. And then one of them that was talking about it like they could feel it, I don't remember what they said, but I remember stopping and going, you can't actually feel that. And they were like, no, and they admitted it like, shame. Yeah. No, I can't. And I was like, okay, but you've been talking about it like you can, and you realize you could learn to actually feel that. That kind of thing. And they wanted that ability, and they seemed to be aware that ability was exceptionally possible, but they didn't currently have that skill.
Sifu, that's one of the things early on in the pandemic. I made a little brief video that was telling my students and anyone else that saw it that if you're wanting to work on another way to work on Ting while we can't put hands on, find some gems, some minerals, some rocks, and learn to feel the vibrational quality.
You don't even have to put it on, just hold the bottle.
Yes, exactly. So, and even so now to this day, while it's still limited with making contact with people, if you want to use that as a way to develop additional types of Ting, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. That's, and I would say if somebody has no skill at all, it might be tough. They might not be able to do that. They're going to have to work their way through and do other like body processes first yourself. Yeah. If you don't have another family member or an animal or something you can do it on, then you'll have to use other types of things or start really getting better, faster, more with those things you can perceive on yourself. And there's a lot of things there you can perceive on yourself. And we do go through a number of them, like a good number of them, that kind of thing. But then once they built up some skill like that, and then they graduated up to these other things, there is a point where it's a logical progression and is very doable.
Sifu, I've met a number of people that sold gems that really felt nothing at all. Yeah, that's not unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understood that.
Yeah.
The one that caught my eye was that they were posing as if they really could feel it.
Okay, yeah.
And it very quickly became apparent with me actually being able to feel it. Like, you can't, like, I don't remember what they said or did, but it was something.
It was basically, it was a young lady who said that she holds the stones and then gets an intuition about them and
Got
like
it.
gets a sense in her mind, but not like a sense of the energy. It's just like she holds it and then kind of thinks about it and gets an answer.
Got it.
And most of the time, her answers that she had about stuff were like wrong. Like
Yeah,
no
and I was kind to her because I have no reason not to be. At the same time, I was like, okay, I'm not going to listen to anything else she's got to say about this because, there's no point.
So that first stone that you picked up that was so wild that Harry gave you, do you know what it was?
Yeah, we know what it is. Harry, you can tell him.
It's blue. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. It's either tourmaline or tourmaline. Blue tourmaline or tourmaline, and it was super small, like half the size of a dime, if even. And you would hold it in the palm of your hand, and it would, or anywhere, and it would give you the floating feeling, like real ethereal.
It does more than just the floating feeling, but there is that.
And how do you spell it?
What's that?
You know how to spell it?
Yeah.
Tourmaline, Tourmaline. I will warn you ahead of time. It's rare.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different kinds of tourmaline in different colors. There's different properties per gem. The one I've held a number of them now, and they each have different qualities. They do not all do the same thing. And the mildest difference in color and the mildest difference in like shape, properties to it of some kind really make a lot of difference.
Oh, cool.
So don't assume that you're going to get one like what this one is. And the other one is that what I've seen for quality ones run upwards of over $500 for a stone that literally is the size of you click your pin and the part of the pin that sticks out a little bit bigger than that, but not much.
Yeah.
And unless you can feel it good at the point of holding it, you're not going to want to get that. If you're looking for it to use stones to feel things, there's garnet and a couple of other things that really have a more pronounced signature that are $1 a stone. It's cheap.
No, I'm fine. I'll just go on the internet and feel the pictures of the stone, and that would be good.
I actually did some of that.
Yeah. He was able to pre-select certain stones by doing that. So that he knew that he was getting the right one with the right properties.
The best one that I could get, for what was available.
So we've been in the stores where you can take the ones, they could be a pile of them, and they're all called blue tourmaline, and to the eye they look blue, but you can pick it up and be like, no, this one really is doing more like a green, and this one's really doing black, and this one's really, and you can go through them that way, and you got to get just the right one for it to really be that nice blue property.
Cool. Okay. And again, how do you spell it? TOURMALINE. Okay.
Think term align, but term is maline.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Yep. But again, to get a piece there that's good and going to do like what that piece is and all that, it's expensive. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's okay. If you needed that property, couldn't get that property any other way and couldn't train to it, which you can obviously easily too. It'd be easily enough. Then it'd be a different thing, but I'm not going to spend like massive amounts of money for something I can just do Tai Chi and get easily enough. When I'm trying to get a quality and I get a stone for $1 or $2, and then that's helping me feel that quality, and then I go and duplicate it in my Tai Chi, I like that. Yeah. And that kind of thing. But anyways, you get the idea. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts or any of that there? Anyways, Dongjing. What is your favorite Dongjing experience or your Dongjing teaching lesson? And I would say that and obviously you may have a different one, Sheila, but that when you felt the dog out in the pool doing that, am I correct that when your mind felt the dog doing, or when you perceived the dog doing that you knew instantly what the problem was?
Oh, I think she's frozen.
Yes, that's correct. So it was interesting. The sensation that I perceived. But then there was that knowing that it was a dog in the pool, which was not necessarily, evident from the
From what you
sensations
picked up.
that I was receiving. It was apparent to me that that is what was going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Yep. And I've got Dongjing experience or Dongjing teaching lesson. Yep. Sheila, you there okay? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said, but if you heard me, that's what matters. I hear you now.
Okay. Anybody else for favorite Dongjing experience, Dongjing teaching lesson? Harry, I'll pick on you.
The teaching lesson would be the one where you put the hand up and you're trying to feel the other person's mind when they're coming at you, and you can move it.
And when you like, I know he's coming now. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because you can feel that signal.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
Matt.
I guess probably the most recent one that leaps to mind is I've got a young lady that I was working with who had very aggressive fibromyalgia, and when she first came to me, it was her and her mom, and I had her do what I described earlier in the call. I had her stand up and I kind of walked around her, and then I had her walk a little bit, and I kind of watched her walk. And I started to call things out, including the first thing that I said was, you've got this pelvic tilt that if you're not careful and you don't work to correct that, it can turn into spinal stenosis. And immediately her mom, who was sitting down and kind of watching all this, said, "I have stenosis. I just had my second surgery for it." Ooh. And so it wasn't inherited, like it was a thing that like runs in the family. And then there were other other issues where it was like, I scanned her. I did a Fogong session, and I couldn't necessarily see anything funny right away, but I felt something screaming off of her left knee.
He's not in the energy field. He's not
in the energy
her.
field. Yeah. And so I said, okay, so what I'm feeling is that you've kind of recently hurt or injured that knee, because I'm not seeing it show up like physically in the way you're standing, but I am feeling like this thing there. And she had like 2 days prior to that, she had been doing some really intense kind of working out, and then felt something pop in her knee in the middle of the workout. And then the next day it was really aggravating her. And then the day after that, it abated a little bit, but that's when I was like looking at her, was 2 days later. And so there's things like that, that as you go through the material, you start to really perceive things. And even like that one, I didn't necessarily know yet, but I knew things about it. And there were things that I was able to pick up, and I didn't know 100% how exactly she had hurt herself or whatever, but I could tell. I could sort of cross off things and say, well, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, it wasn't a long time ago, and I could narrow in on it that way. And the more you talk to people and the more experiences you have with that, the more it just becomes, I know what that is.
Cool. Tai?
I'm not sure who mentioned this before, but what happens with a lot of my students is that they'll be working out, or we'll be working on a form, or somebody just walks into class, and like Matt said, you can say, "Oh, you have arthritis in your lower back," or "You hurt your shoulder," or "Why do you have so much tension here?" And they're like, "You're not even touching me. How do you know this across the room?" And that really gets them interested in like, how can I do that? And so sometimes I do it not thinking about it, just
Yep.
Tourette syndrome. It just comes out of my mouth, and I find that it does motivate them to go further, to really work on it themselves.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see here, Phil.
I'm not sure that this applies, but one of the things that came up before COVID and before some other things, I used to walk outside and I would listen to stories on CD, books on CD.
Mhm.
And then I said, oh, I'm taking this mindfulness course and I really I shouldn't be listening to a book on CD. I should be paying attention to the environment. So I started just looking at trees, and I would really pay attention to the tree. And I'd look at the texture of the bark and the color and the nuances of the leaves. And eventually I could feel the energy of the trees.
Yes.
And that was something totally new. And it was very cool because it really changed the way I interact or view being out in nature.
Sure.
And you know, when people would go on walks in the park or in the wood, you know,
Yeah.
in forests and things, why would you do that? But once I could sense the energy of trees, I could see really, yeah.
So cool.
It makes perfect sense to do that as much as you can. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then over time, I worked on feeling energy of bushes. So bushes were different and grass was different. And then I could feel the energy of water. And then I think I mentioned when I was walking, there were frogs in this pond. So I would listen really closely to the frogs, and then I could feel the energy of frogs.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see a toad, I haven't paid much attention to toads. So if I try to sense the energy of a toad, I can't. So that's how I can know. I can probably tell if there's a little amphibian in a terrarium, I could tell whether it's a frog or a toad energetically.
That's cool.
Now, is that not a useful skill?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, it'll translate. You know, it may not be super useful like immediately in terms of like how often you have to determine whether something is a frog or a toad, but your ability to do that will translate into other awesome
things.
Tai Chi skill. Yeah,
that's right. Cool. Who have I not given a chance to win? Sheila, do you want to say something?
Yeah. Besides the other example, I have a really good story. I was doing a healing actually through Zoom on a young lady, and she told me what the issue was that she was worried about, but I scanned her whole body. And in addition to the problem area, I found certain tension in the neck, in the shoulder, and in the hip, all on the same side. And for some reason, that combination of tensions, it just popped out of my mouth, like Tai says. Do you study in your bed, laying on your left side, you know, cradling your head in your hand? And she said, yes, oh my gosh, how did you even know that? And I was like, she said, I was not expecting that. And I said, well, I wasn't either, but it was true. And then I just knew it, you know, from scanning her body, I could tell that she had that habit.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. So I said, well, okay, if you really like that, do it, but then periodically stand up and stretch and do these types of movements to alleviate that. But that was kind of fun.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and a Dongjing at work right there. Yes. Art, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, to tell you the truth, I don't think I have anything really pertinent to this. I could, well, say something like, at times I have felt sort of intuitions, but nothing that comes to mind as a case I could present right now. I know.
Yeah, I got it. Let me ask you this. So when you first started with our system, am I correct? You hadn't really had much training for feeling inside of a body in the way that Tai Chi teaches you to do. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So what would you say in our system was it that when you got taught to feel something that beforehand you would have been like, I wouldn't even have known I could have felt that? What is one that really surprised you when you learned how to feel it?
Well, just I think that I could learn to feel inside, and with especially the emphasis put on relaxation and sensitivity, feeling inside another person, sending the energy in, and even though it might not be extremely accurate or sensitive, it still had this ability and could sense inside someone else. So
Okay.
it is a developing skill that,
Yeah, you're saying just the fact that it's doable
right.
a lot. And then, so was there a time when you felt somebody or were pushing or doing a Fa Gong and you found something or felt something or experienced something and went, oh, that's this. And then they said, yeah, and that's kind of surprised you, which is typically how people first get to Dongjing, even if they're aware that this is something they want. Usually when it first happens, it's kind of, I don't know if sudden's the right word, but unexpected.
Well, I was one time when I was pushing hands, the internal push hands, and I was finding success with a particular sort of motion or energy usage that and into the lower back. And I said, yeah, I'm always able to, or often able to catch you in the lower back. And said, yeah, I had I forget, a sprain there or a strain there or something that left some residual sort of weakness or clump of muscle sort of that is the type of thing, that you're mentioning that to look for and find. And actually along those lines, and since you brought it up, I have found, working with someone else that they would say, do this or do that or try this. And I'd say, well, I'm not really sure I'm doing it, but I try and I say, well, yeah, that's it. So I was doing it intuitively, sort of, being mindful and letting things go just to be there and doing, extending the energy out in the right way without being conscious of it. So again, that's sort of a step in that direction that I'm working on developing. So
Cool.
little tiny steps towards knowing.
By the way, Art is not our newest member on, but he is one of our junior, newest members on. So he's still progressing and still working and learning and progressing regularly. So it has experiences with the skills now, and we keep getting better.
Thank you.
It's getting better.
Thanks to you
Thanks.
and your man and everybody. Very
Cool. Matt, I think, or is there everybody else on the board there? Yeah.
Yeah, so I do actually have one more. I talked about my knowing experience, but there was a student, someone that I was helping to coach. She's a teacher herself, but this is probably my favorite knowing experience from my time in Tai Chi because of how excited she got for it. She had come out to one of our internal push hands workshops the year before, and was having a lot of trouble feeling root. It was very, very frustrating for her. She was a teacher and she brought one of her students, and her student was able to do it and she wasn't. And so she was just very, very frustrated, and I helped coach her through it. And then, and to the point where she could really feel it. And she proved it and she passed her test. And then she came back the next year, and I was giving a test to another couple of guys, and I had her shadow me so she could learn how to give the test, as well as, pass the test. And while I was testing their root depth, she was standing off to the side, and I walked back over and I kind of told her what I had, felt and crossed them off their list. And she said, I could feel that. And I said, yeah, good. We worked on that last year. I'm glad you're, keeping that up. And she said, no, I could feel that from here when I wasn't touching them. I could feel their root. I could feel that he was deeper. And then I felt him move and he was deeper. And I knew who was who and where they were and what was going on. And I wasn't even touching them. And she was like, well, that was the first time she had felt root below the ground without contact with someone. And she had built it up by playing the game to the point where she took it from a Ting level of what is that? What am I feeling? To knowing, at least at a certain level of knowing, and then was able to step back and really apply that. And in just a year, where she did not have the skill at all the year before, and in 1 year, she was able to do that with it. So it was pretty.
Oh yeah, cool. Thank you. All right, guys. The last but not least is if you want to know more about this kind of thing and how to get it, video I most recommend there for our stuff at this point is Dong Jing, Knowing. And that is available at
TaiChiKnowing.com.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
For those of you who are interested in internal power and want a reliable place to start, and for anyone who wants to experience internal power for themselves, go to internalpowerguide.com. I built a crash course in hands-on internal power. The Practical Guide to Internal Power is a work at your own pace online program. It is the course I use to get students from 0 to 60 as quickly as possible, and it is totally free. So sign up at internalpowerguide.com now and get started right away. That's internalpowerguide.com.